All right, welcome back to another comparison video, and today we're going to go between the Isle of Japan and the Isle of Jura. Now, you may not be familiar with Jura. Jura is actually an island that falls in between Islay in Scotland. Islay is where a lot of our peaty scotches come from, and then there's Jura, and then there's the mainland of Scotland. So if you wanted to get to Jura, what you would do is you would go from Glasgow, drive out to Kennaicraig, which is the port, pick up a Calmac ferry, really nice ferry, 3 levels, park your car on it, go have lunch while you're there, enjoy some hot chocolate, whatever you want to try, or have a dram while you're crossing over, and then you'll end up in either Port Eskeg or Port Ellen. If you go to Port Ellen, you're going to be down by the 3 biggies, the Lagavulin, Ardbeg, and Laphroaig, and then the soon-to-be open Port Ellen distillery will be there also. If you go to Port Eskeg, then you're going to end up at Kalila, Bunnahabhain, and Ardnahoe, which is the new distillery that just opened up there, that hasn't produced any whiskey yet for consumption, but is working on whiskey. And you can go to any 3 of those distilleries and look across at Jura, and it is gorgeous. There are these 2 mountains that look like hills, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful scene across the little straits there. But to get to Jura, you have to get to Port Eskeg first, then pick up another ferry and cross over, and I think that one goes hourly, and cross back over to Jura. And I heard that in October the waters are fairly choppy. Well, the weather was great while I was there, so I probably could have done it, but they said, well, the waters are kind of choppy and it's kind of a rough little ride down through there. But next time I go, I will go to Jura. Jura is an interesting island too, because it kind of reminds me of my trip to Newfoundland many years ago. As I understand it, there's one road, there's one pub, there's one distillery, there's a few estates, and there's 200 people and 5,000 red deer. So you got to watch for the deer while you're over there, apparently. But that is Jura, and so they make a whiskey at Jura. They make several whiskeys, actually, but the one that I'm going to be tasting today is the Jura 10, and the Japanese whiskey that I'm going to be trying is Suntory Toki. And this is what I would consider a great first dram for somebody to try out. If you've never had Japanese whiskey and you just want to buy a bottle, you can get this for about $30 a bottle. In comparison, this is about $45 a bottle. This is 43% alcohol. This one is 40% alcohol. And so the other main difference between these is that this is a blended whiskey, and this is a single malt whiskey. So it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison, but when I do these comparison videos, I want to put 2 unusual mixes together, because I think what happens is when I taste the 2 of them, and they are very different from each other, it sort of accentuates those differences and helps me go, wow, that one is really this and this one is really that. So that's part of the reason I did it. But this is a blend of 3 different whiskeys. I've not been to Japan. I am so looking forward to the day that I actually will be able to take a trip to Japan and go see their distilleries. I think they have as many distilleries actually in Japan as they have on Islay. It's amazing how many distilleries they have on Islay. But this one is Suntory. You probably hear Suntory also from Beam Suntory. That is who owns Jim Beam as well. But this whiskey comes from a blend of 3 different whiskeys. There's a grain whiskey from Chita Distillery in Japan. I don't know what the grain is that they're using out of there, but then there's Hakushu. I'll get my Japanese correct, and Yamazaki, which is the other distillery. And you'll see sometimes their whiskey on the shelf as well. Blended whiskeys from Japan are becoming very prevalent, and the reason they are is because Japanese whiskey got so very popular that now they're just trying to stretch out their supply. So they're doing a lot of blends, but their blends are really nice. They're working on really competing on the same level with Scotch and maybe even trying to surpass Scotch. So the quality of Japanese whiskeys, very good, and that's why they're high in demand, very expensive. And so $30 a bottle, you can see this one is definitely a bargain. The other thing you're going to notice here, and I use my little Capita glasses here because I actually prefer drinking out of these instead of the Glencairns because you don't have to touch the base. Let's look at the color difference between the two. Now this one, this Jura, is actually aged and finished in a sherry cask. And so that will account for some of that color. I don't know if there's any caramel color in there. This is about an average color, amber color whiskey. I always use Johnny Walker Black as kind of the mid-range for amber, and this is about the same tone as Johnny Walker Black. This is what I call a -2 on the color scale. It is almost like a white wine. I would say that actually is pretty much like a white wine color. What's interesting is when I first tasted this, I kept thinking, wow, man, I'm smelling grapes in that. And part of me wonders if that's just the influence of the color. So, all right, we're gonna try these two out, and I have tried these before. One thing I noticed when I first started moving this around, I don't know if you can see it or not, this one has some heavy legs. I mean, you can see it really creating a band up there and slowly dripping some thick legs down there. And so that is going to be a very substantial mouthfeel when you drink that. And I do love to have a nice mouthfeel to a whiskey. To me, it's an indicator of quality, and for me, it's a quality experience more than anything. So this one is interesting because it gives you the green apple right up front, which of course I smell green apple a lot. It's very obvious in this one. What's interesting though is that there is a smell in this that I've smelled in Hibiki as well, Hibiki Harmony. And I don't know if it is Japanese oak, and maybe that has a different kind of smell to it, but there's like a wood alcohol kind of smell that permeates from the start to the finish on this one. So I find that very interesting. The other flavors that I get out of the smell, I actually get like it reminds me of when I was a kid and my mother used to make white rice and we put pepper on it. It has a peppery white rice to it. And the other thing is that I wanted to call it menthol when I first smelled it, but it actually reminds me of basil. It's like this cool herbal thing going on, and the closest thing I can come to is basil with that one. So let's take a sip of it. I like to hold it in there for a long time. It's really interesting because when it's in my mouth, it feels really nice, but I don't get a lot of flavors out of it. It's pleasant. There's an underlying fruity sweetness to it, but it doesn't, nothing jumps out at me until I swallow it, and then suddenly I get this grapefruit that pops in out of nowhere, and then it's got this kind of peppery finish on it that you don't really expect, and then that undertone of that sort of wood alcohol thing going on. So it's got a very nice mouthfeel to it, and I guess depending on, it's like the mouthfeel takes over in the middle to make up for the fact that I can't really pick any flavors out of it. It's one of those that probably I just need to sit with for a while, and it's going to come to me at some point, what the flavor is on that one. All right, and then we'll jump over to the Jura 10. This is not the Origin. This is just the regular standard Jura 10. Ooh. And what's interesting, like I say, comparing two completely different whiskeys against each other, I'd not picked up the smoke in this right off the bat on the nose until I had that first, and then I came over to this. That's how light the smoke is, though. If you come at this without having tried something else, it that smoke is almost not there. There is a peach that I get out of this, and peach is not one of my favorite flavors, but it's subtle, and it also has kind of a citrusy. I don't know, first time I smelled it, I smelled a lemon pie, like a lemon meringue pie, but this time I'm getting more of an orange out of it. And that smoke just subtly in the background. If you don't like smoky whiskeys, I don't think you'd be offended by this because it is so light. It's just like somebody's waving some smoke in the distance at you or something. All right. The smoke is not overly heavy through the flavor, but on the end, the peach comes back out big time. It lays on top of the whole flavor profile. And then I get this something between a milk chocolate and a dark chocolate and coconut, which is really nice underneath it. The thing I noticed about drinking this last night was that after about 10 minutes, I realized I couldn't taste any of it. It's like, it has a long finish on it, but it's a long, gradual fade, and there's no residual left afterwards. In fact, I probably should have drank this first before I drank the Toki, because this one just kind of nicely fades away, no water needed in between, whereas that one I think leaves a little bit on the palate. But yeah, coconut, dark raisin, maybe a little bit. And I put it in the Dalmore glass because White Mackay makes this, and they also make Dalmore. So it seemed right. It's like when people put Guinness in a Budweiser glass. I just want to go, take it back. It's just not right. That's not right. Don't do that. Match your glassware up as best you can. But I didn't have any Japanese, so I went with Bruichladdich. And so there you go. But anyway, so interesting because after your voting, we agreed. This one came out at 66%, and this came out at 34%. And that's not to discount this whiskey at all. If you want to jump into Japanese whiskey and have something that's a quality dram, this is it. I think this just wins out because throughout the whole experience, it's really nice. This one, like I say, it kind of disappears in the middle and then comes back with flavors on the back end. And you can taste the youth in it. There is that woody alcohol note that seems to ride throughout it. I think a lot of people would probably use it as a mixer, but I think it can stand on its own. I just think it's one of those that you have to really sit there with it and try to pull out what it is that you like about it. So hope you enjoyed the video, and leave your feedback, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think of these two and what kind of flavor notes you get out of them and nosing as well. So thanks very much.